Hi, folks. I'm Conrad Carnegie, Executive Publisher and CEO of Santa's Books. I'm delighted to bring to you and with me today, one of our first authors, um, Therese DesCamp, but that's not how you pronounce it.
Not quite.
She'll straighten us out. And her book is Hands Like Roots, Notes on an Entangled Contemplative Life. Um, Therese, why this book? Where did it come from?
Um, so I've been writing essays for about 20 years to try and sort out, well, I've been writing my whole life, but these particular essays have been my attempt to sort out um, this kind of move of giving myself over. I don't know how else to explain it. My husband and I moved to a village in Canada with pretty much no planning and no I mean, it's the most foolish thing either of us have ever done, but we fell in love with this community and decided this was where we could do some work that seemed important to us. And then, of course, I arrived first about a year and a half before he was able to come, and uh, it promptly had all my roles and my like everything that made me feel important was gone. And I was there alone and I didn't know anybody. And so there was this, there were many moments when I just thought, am I nuts? But I have felt mm, for as long as I can remember, I felt this longing. Uh, uh, some people call it the God hole. that uh, just a desire to be to know and to be more intimate with the holy, however we understand that. Um, and this was in some way my attempt to take the next step, because I'd done a whole lot of things before that, but nothing seemed to feel like it worked. Anyway, I got here and life was empty. And I started to try and write about that. And I also, at the same time, while I've been reading a bunch of contemplative authors uh, before, and I had had a meditation practice for a long time, I fell in with the Christian contemplative world. Um, Cynthia Bourgeault, James Finley, other people like that, Teilhard de Chardin. Uh, so I just started rethinking who I was and how I was and what my relationship to the world was, and how important was me anyway. And so these were my attempts to talk about that, to talk about being a person of spirit in every moment of my life. And today, Conrad, we're doing this on October 1st, which is a feast day of Therese of Lisieux, whom I'm named after. And one of the things she always talked about in her very short and um, relatively unglamorous life was this little way. She called it the little way. And it was simply about finding, I mean, if I were a Buddhist, I'd talk about it as being present in each moment and finding the
Mhm.
passion in each moment and not reacting and simply being practicing the presence of God in the daily moments. So that's sort of why this all came together. I've been writing these for years. And then some very specific things happened. We're in the middle of a forest and we've had a couple of years of um, severe forest fires. Last summer was really, really bad. And I tried to write about that. And as I was writing about that for a magazine article, I came across a piece of poetry or a prayer by St. Francis of Assisi, and it's as interpreted by Daniel Ladinsky. And it goes like, our hands imbibe like roots. So I place them on what is beautiful in this world and I fold them in prayer, and they draw from the heavens light. And I realized that in those four short lines was complete manifesto for a contemplative about how to be engaged in the world at this point in time. And the first one, was about just the profound entanglement and interrelatedness of our lives, and that everything that not just mystics talk about, but scientists talk about right now is how we're just simply inseparable. We're simply inseparable. And I've had the momentary privilege of experiencing that. So I know it. And then there's so I place them on what's beautiful in this world. And I started thinking about what makes things beautiful. And it's a matter of our attention. And that even within the most unbeautiful places, there are these openings. And so I thought about the work of, instead of pushing things away, letting them in and seeing more deeply, and then folding them in prayer, that moment of surrender, and letting go of trying to fix things, and opening myself to what the holy has to say or do, and then and they draw from the heaven's light is about that experience of being having an ally, if you will. It comes in all different kinds of ways, sometimes human ways, sometimes just a sense of grounding, sometimes inspiration, sometimes courage when you're terrified. So I wrote about that. That's a sort of eponymous essay, as I would say. And then I realized that all these essays I've been writing over all these years fell into those 4 categories. So that's why I came to you and said, Conrad, let's do this. I'd like to publish this. I think it's helpful.
And I recognized immediately that it was a beautiful piece. But even until today, I don't think I've heard you articulate. I mean, we've been working very closely on this. You've been working in our group, you've been talking to the authors, but there's something about the summary that you just gave us of where this came from and why it's so relevant that is crystal clear. You've been traveling, you've been talking about the book. Is that part of it, or what has happened that, or maybe it's just that you were so busy working to get this done, but you just gave a beautiful summary of this book and why it's important, Therese.
Thank you. Well, part of the reason why I feel like it's, maybe I'm better at articulating it right now, but it feels incredibly clear to me that I can't remember who said it, but you can't you can't tear down the master's house using the master's tools. Some socialists said that. But the point is that we're not going to get anywhere with this incredible, difficult world we're living in right now. Every day, a shock of something.
Yeah.
We're not going to fix it by doing the same behaviors of the people that we feel are on the other side. And that the only way that real change is going to happen is through that movement into depth, where we're sturdy inside, so we are not buffeted by the winds of this horror or that horror, or this excitement or that excitement. And that we have a place, a rooted place. Thomas Merton would have called it the Point Vierge, the Virgin Point, the place where God and I are the same thing. It's accessible to me, but it's not under my control, so I can touch it. I can touch it like a little touchstone, like a place of knowing, okay, yeah, that's me. That's there. So I can operate from there and not from all the fear and craziness. And so that place is a place from which we need to respond to what's going on. It may look exactly the same on the outside to somebody, but I don't think so. I don't think it'll look exactly the same. I think it's going to feel different. And the other thing is, there may be no stopping the juggernaut.
Mm.
But hope is not about the outcome. Hope is about knowing that God has given me the capacity to stand in the whirlwind.
Hearing you again just feels in some ways like maybe, I mean, it's off quoted, but just for such a time as this book has come to be. And I think even more so than a year ago, right?
Yeah, that's what's been interesting, because I told you that at the last reading I did, I took the last question from the audience, and this guy said, "So what does this have to do with Donald Trump?" And I heard groans across the room.
Mhm.
But it feels to me like, even though I was primarily at that point in time, right, my life is about climate change. I mean, I've been an environmental advocate, and I live in a place where
Mhm.
the natural world is visible to me. It is not manicured. It is not tailored, and it's not, you know, what happens, and I see it. I see trees burn, I see trees die, I see landscapes be desiccated, I see rivers run full, and I see the years when the fish don't come. I mean, it's real. So it's always been, the most pressing thing that I could see was climate change. But it's really hard not to see the war in Gaza. It's really hard not to see the Ukraine. It's really hard not to see the weaponization of the US government.
So, in closing, how did you answer that question?
What question? Oh, how did I
Right.
answer? I said, this is what we do. This is the inner work we have to do in order to make any response that makes sense. And I say one more thing about this. A friend of mine, I was praying with a friend of mine, and she said, she's a really wise woman, and she said, we need to pray for the end, for people to be removed from power, but we have to be able to do this without one iota of hate or disdain and I had this moment where I saw Jesus picking up Mr. Trump, who was in the middle of a playpen and lashing out. It's just a kid who was so upset, lashing out. And he picked him up and he handed him to Mary,
Mm.
who held him as he wept and had a little tantrum, and because he couldn't settle. And Jesus got into the middle of the playpen. And everybody was really mad at the person in the middle of the playpen. And Jesus got into it to take it. And I just thought, yeah, that's what this is. That's the work here.
Wow. Therese, thank you. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for being an author of Santos. Thank you for promoting a book that is God's book, that is God's story. It's been so much fun to see you excited about this book and to see you excited about the message of the book and to just see the convergence of the book and the times that we're in. Thank you. The book can be purchased at anywhere. Uh, and anywhere books are sold. I think it's selling in Indigo in Canada.
And Amazon in Canada, but you can get it through your local bookstore, which is such a good thing.
Yes.
It's distributed by
Wow.
Angry. In the States, it's Barnes and Noble and Amazon, and you can get it in your local bookstore. And I'm working on Powell's in Portland, which is very exciting. So we'll
Yeah.
see if they take it. Hmm.
And the Santos Books website.
Oh God, yes, sorry. And
Oh,
yes, thank you. You can buy them in bulk and give them for Christmas presents.
that's exactly right. Therese, thank you so much for being with us and for taking the time today. I greatly appreciate you and all you're doing, all you've done and all you're doing.
Well, I'm just so glad to have somebody who got the book enough to say, oh yeah, we need to do this. So
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you. Okay, now we turn on